I am Ibrahim Traoré, and today I'm pulling off your masks. Yes, you heard correctly. I, whom you call a young military junta leader, whom you brand as a dangerous radical, whom you serve up as an anti-Western dictator, am now telling you the truth. And this time you cannot turn off your microphones. This time you cannot turn away your cameras. This time your editors cannot cut this speech, because the world you monopolize no longer exists. Because millions will hear these words now, without passing through your filters, without being subjected to your distortions, without being muddied by your lies. I am 34 years old. Every day of my life, I grew up with your lies. As a child, I would watch Africa on television. Always the same images. Children with flies, dry lands, weapons, death. This is Africa, they told us. This is what Africa is. And we believed it. We were ashamed of ourselves. We were ashamed of our own lands, of our own people. But then I grew up. I read, I researched, I questioned, and I understood that the Africa you showed us wasn't real. The story you told us was a lie. The fate you imposed on us was a script you had written. For years, how have you portrayed Africa? How have you shown it? How have you sold it to your viewers? As if we were creatures who had no share of humanity, as if we were savages left outside of civilization, as if we were wretches waiting for you to save us. Every day, every hour, every minute, the same story plays on your screens. Hunger, war, disease, corruption, terror, chaos. These are the words that come to mind when Africa is mentioned. In your Africa dictionary, there are no other words. No hope, no success, no development, no resistance, no honor, no pride, no victory. So I ask you, New York Times, Washington Post, Guardian, Le Monde, have you ever made Africa's successes your headlines? How many times have you written about Rwanda's technology miracle? How many times have you shown Ethiopia's reforestation project? How many times have you praised Botswana's democratic success? How many times have you described Kenya's entrepreneurial ecosystem? No, because these don't fit your scenario. Your Africa cannot be successful. It cannot, because then how will you legitimize your exploitation? If it's not in need of help, how will you intervene? If it's not backward, how will you look down on it? Have you ever asked yourselves, has any editor sitting at their desk, any news director in a meeting, any columnist at their keyboard ever thought, why are the people of the world's richest lands poor? Here are the numbers for you, real numbers. Africa owns 70% of the world's cobalt reserves. Your cell phone, your computer, your electric car won't work without cobalt. This cobalt comes from Congo, but Congolese can't afford cell phones. Africa owns 90% of the world's platinum reserves. Catalytic converters, electronic devices, medical implants, they all need platinum. This platinum comes from South Africa, but South Africans are crushed by unemployment. Africa provides 30% of the world's gold production. Mali, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Tanzania. Gold flows like rivers from our lands, but our people swim in poverty. Africa supplies 65% of the world's diamond production. Botswana, Angola, Congo, Sierra Leone, billions of dollars worth of diamonds are extracted, but our miners live on $1 a day. Africa owns 35% of the world's uranium reserves. Niger, Namibia, South Africa. Nuclear plants run on our uranium. Paris lights burn with our uranium, but our villages have no electricity. And you still ask, why is Africa poor? No, the right question is, how was Africa kept poor while being so rich? Here's your answer. Colonialism didn't end. It changed shape. You used to come and occupy our lands. Now you come and establish companies. You used to take by force. Now you make agreements. You used to rule with the whip. Now you rule with credit. Let me give you concrete examples. With numbers, names, dates, but you'll never write about these. Glencore, Swiss-based mining giant, extracting cobalt in Congo. 2022 revenue, $256 billion. Tax paid to Congo, $500 million. That's 0.2%. Is this justice? Rio Tinto, British-Australian mining giant, extracting bauxite in Guinea, 20 million tons annually. What's left for Guinea? Environmental pollution and cancer. Total Energies, French oil giant, extracting oil in Angola, Nigeria, Congo. 2022, profit, $36 billion investment in Africa, dirty pipelines, Anglo-American, founded in South Africa but now in London. Diamonds, platinum, iron, taking everything. What it left in South Africa? 6 million unemployed miners. And these are just the tip of the iceberg. What about the invisible, the secret deals, the offshore accounts, the transfer pricing tricks? Every year, $88 billion in illegal money flows out of Africa. Who writes about this? Every year, $45 billion in aid comes to Africa. Everyone writes about this, but no one says Africa is not the continent receiving aid, it's the continent giving aid. While you zoom your cameras on swollen bellies, there is a huge system working silently in the background. Every day, tons of gold, diamonds, cobalt, uranium, oil leave our land. But how? Here is the system. Step 1, create corruption, bribe our leaders, open offshore accounts, promise them a life of luxury, send their children to your schools. Step 2, make deals, get 50-year, 99-year concessions, ask for tax exemptions, be exempt from environmental rules, ignore labor rights. Step 3, control the infrastructure, take over ports, airports, railways, but only from the mine to the harbor. Don't build roads to the villages. Don't bring electricity to schools. Step 4, provide security. Set up private security companies. Arm them. Declare protesting. Step 5, silence the media. Buy local journalists. Suppress opposing voices. Serve internal unrest news to international media. And this is how the system works. It's been working like this for 100 years, and you don't see this system. You don't want to see it, because you're part of the system too. Who are the biggest advertisers of New York Times, CNN, BBC, oil companies, mining companies, arms companies, pharmaceutical cartels, the companies that exploit Africa? You live on their money, you defend their interests, and what I'm about to tell you might cost me my life, but it's no longer time to be silent. France's system in Africa is the CFA franc. 14 African countries still use French colonial currency. 50% of these countries' central bank reserves sit in the French treasury. France applies negative interest to this money, so we pay France to use our own money. Through this system, France transfers $500 billion worth of resources from Africa every year. Does anyone write about this? No. But when France gives Africa 10 billion euros in aid, it makes headlines. Britain's system is more sophisticated. London is the world's money laundering center. City of London, offshore paradise. Every penny stolen from Africa passes through London. Jersey, Guernsey, Cayman Islands, Virgin Islands, all under British control. Africa's wealth hides there. America's system is AFRICOM, Africa Command, 46 military bases on the continent. Official purpose, security. Real purpose, resource control. Drones in our airspace every day, listening devices everywhere. They say fighting terrorism, but it's not terrorists. It's people's leaders who are targeted. China is the new player, says win-win, builds infrastructure, gives credit, but in exchange for what? 99-year port concessions, mining rights, agricultural lands, debt-trap diplomacy, ask Sri Lanka, ask Zambia, and you write about none of this. Why? Because you're not free press. You're corporate press. Your bosses are billionaires. Jeff Bezos bought Washington Post. Why? For love of journalism? Rupert Murdoch's media empire. Fox News, Wall Street Journal, The Sun, The Times, all from the same hand, all giving the same message. West is good, others are bad. Carlos Slim is the largest shareholder of New York Times, Mexican billionaire. Where's his wealth from? Monopolized telecommunications, got rich off Latin America's back, now controls America's most respected newspaper. And you claim to do independent journalism? Who are your editors? Which schools did they graduate from? Harvard, Yale, Oxford, Cambridge? Always the same elite schools, always the same worldview, always the same prejudices. How are your reporters selected? How many languages does your Africa correspondent speak? French, English, that's all. Swahili, Hausa, Yoruba, Amharic, they don't know. They can't talk to the people. Your sources are always the same. Western diplomats, NGOs, experts, and then you come and lecture us. They killed Patrice Lumumba, January 12, 1961. CIA agent Larry Devlin confessed. Belgian mercenaries executed. They dissolved his body in acid, took his teeth as souvenirs. In 2022, that tooth was returned from Belgium to his family after 61 years. And what did you say then? Chaos in Congo. You didn't ask about the killers. You didn't investigate CIA documents. You didn't write about Belgium's crime. They killed Thomas Sankara, October 15, 1987. My hero, Africa's hope. Vaccinated 2.5 million children against measles and meningitis, planted 10 million trees, raised literacy rate from 13% to 73%, gave equal rights to women, banned FGM, ended corruption, sold Mercedes cars, used Renault 5, rejected IMF and World Bank. And most importantly, he said, we will not pay Africa's debts. We didn't make those debts. The puppets before us made them on behalf of colonizers. That's when he had to be killed, and they killed him. Who killed him? His best friend, Blaise Compaoré. With whose support? France. Want proof? Look at the Focart archives. Jacques Faucard, France's Africa Affairs advisor. Everything is written there. And what did you say? Military coup in Burkina Faso. You didn't write about Sankara's dreams. You didn't tell about his projects. You didn't show his successes. You just said, another dictator died, Muammar Gaddafi. Yes, he was a dictator. Yes, he was ruthless. But what had he done in Libya? Per capita income $12,000, Africa's highest. Literacy rate from 25% to 87%. Life expectancy from 51 to 74. Free healthcare, free education, $50,000 for newlyweds. Interest-free loans for home buyers, $5,000 for new births. Gasoline 14 cents per liter. Great man-made river. Irrigation project to green the desert. And Gaddafi's real crime. Dream of United States of Africa. African Central Bank project. African Investment Bank. African Monetary Fund. And most dangerous, gold dinar. Refusing to sell oil for dollars. October 20th, 2011. Lynched in Sirte. Hillary Clinton laughed. We came, we saw, he died. Now look at Libya. 3 different governments, endless civil war, ISIS, Al-Qaeda running wild slave markets exist. Even CNN showed in 2017, oil being looted, weapons depots emptied, spread across Sahel. Do you call this democracy? Do you call this freedom? Do you call this success? And whose turn is it now? The Sahel, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso. You want to make us Libya too. You want to make us Syria. You want to make us Iraq. But not this time, because we've awakened, because we've learned, because we've united. Operation Barkhane, France's Sahel adventure, 2013-2022. Official purpose, fighting terrorism. Real purpose, resource control, 5 through 100 French soldiers, €1 billion annual budget. What's the result? 2013, 500 terrorists in Mali. 2022, 5,000 plus terrorists in Sahel, tenfold increase. What kind of success is this? But what were French soldiers doing? Protecting Niger's uranium mines for Areva, Orano, securing oil pipelines for Total, controlling ports and railways for Bolloré, and fighting terrorism? No, the opposite. Terrorists couldn't come within 50 kilometers of French soldiers, but they could easily burn our villages. Why? Because chaos served their purposes. If there's chaos, they could stay for security reasons. MINUSMA, UN peacekeeping force. In Mali, 15,000 soldiers, $1.2 billion annual budget. 10 years, result, 300 plus. UN soldiers died. Thousands of civilians died. Terror didn't decrease, it increased. And now you say Wagner is dangerous. Russians are taking over Africa. Wagner came, 1,000 soldiers. What happened in 6 months? Terrorists fled, villages are safe, mines are working, people are at peace. What's the difference? Wagner is an ally we invited. France is an occupier who came by force. Wagner follows the agreement. France blackmails, Wagner brings results. France produces excuses, but you don't write the truth. You say Russian mercenaries. Well, what is French Légion étrangère? Aren't they mercenaries? What is American Blackwater Academy? What is British G4S? What is Israeli Black Cube? They are security companies. Wagner is a threat. Why? Because Wagner isn't yours. And the terrorism issue, who created this terror? Who founded Al-Qaeda? 1980s, Afghanistan, CIA, Pakistan ISI, Saudi money, against Soviets. Bin Laden was CIA's man. You called them freedom fighters. Who supported Taliban? Again, you. Heroic mujahideen against Soviet occupation. You gave weapons, gave money, gave training, then you lost control. How was ISIS born? 2003, Iraq invasion. You toppled Saddam. You disbanded the army. You banned Ba'ath Party. You tortured in Abu Ghraib, and those people became ISIS. Then Syria. You said Assad must go. You said moderate rebels. You gave weapons. Those weapons went to ISIS, went to al-Nusra. You destroyed Libya. Who looted Gaddafi's weapon depots? Where did those weapons go? To Mali, to Niger, to Burkina Faso, to Nigeria, to Chad. Who strengthened Boko Haram? In 2009, Nigerian police killed their leader Mohammed Yusuf. Extrajudicial execution. What did you say? Nothing. Where were your human rights organizations? Silent. Then revenge started. Boko Haram radicalized. But where did they find weapons? From Libya that you destroyed. And now you come to lecture us about fighting terrorism. You're helping us clean up the monsters you created? No, we've seen the game now. Terror is your Trojan horse. You come with the excuse of terror, you stay, you exploit. But it's over now. We'll provide our own security, we'll fight with our own methods, and we'll win. Because we are the children of this land. We know this land, we know these people. We can distinguish terrorist from villager. We don't fight from drones, from satellites, from 10,000 kilometers away like you. And we're winning. In Mali, in Niger, in Burkina Faso, terror is ending. Villages are safe. People are hopeful. Because now our own army, our own police are fighting, not for foreigners, but for the people. But you can't digest this. You say democratic backsliding. You say human rights violations. Which democracy? Which human rights? How many people are detained without trial in Guantanamo? What happened in Abu Ghraib? Who did you kill in Bagram? Who did you torture in CIA's black sites? Why is Julian Assange in prison for exposing your war crimes? Why did Chelsea Manning spend years in prison for leaking the truth? Why is Edward Snowden a fugitive for revealing you spy on everyone and you lecture us about human rights? How many civilians died in your drone strikes? You say collateral damage and move on. How many weddings did you strike in Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia? How many schools did you bomb? How many hospitals did you burn? And you teach us the laws of war? Look, I come from war. I know the front. I've seen death. I've carried wounded soldiers. I've consoled mothers of martyrs. And I tell you, a real soldier protects his people. A real soldier doesn't harm civilians. A real soldier fights with honor. Your mercenaries, your drone pilots, your special forces, they're not soldiers. They're killers. They kill people by pressing buttons from 10,000 kilometers away, then go home and play with their children. We don't fight like that. We look our enemy in the face. We protect civilians. We fight with our honor. We die with our honor. And we'll win. Because the righteous win. Because those who fight with their people win. Because those who fight for their land win. Let's return to your media. I know how you work. I have friends who work within the system. There are journalists with conscience, but they stay silent. Why? Because the system silences them. Those who write the truth get fired. Investigative journalists are laid off due to budget cuts. Dissenting columnists are shown the door because reader interest has declined. And what replaces them? Experts from think tanks, NGOs, universities, all saying the same thing, all defending the same thesis. West is good, Africa is bad. So who are these experts? Where do they get their funding? National Endowment for Democracy, NED, American democracy exporter, CIA's legal arm, has fingers everywhere, funds opposition, directs media, creates civil society. Open Society Foundations, George Soros's organization, says open society, but open for whom? Open to what? Open to exploitation, open to intervention, open to manipulation. Ford Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, all in Africa, doing aid, but what do they get in return? Control, data, influence, and your media is their trumpet. You headline Gates is saving Africa, but you don't say how many African children were paralyzed by Gates's vaccine trials, how many farmers committed suicide because of Monsanto seeds. You're masters at storytelling, but always the same story, white savior. Remember Live Aid? 1985. We Are the World, charity concert for Africa, millions raised. What came to Africa? Corruption increased, dependency increased, but it was a great story for you. Bob Geldof became a hero. Musicians looked conscientious. Viewers felt good about themselves. Africa remained hungry. Remember Kony 2012? Viral video. Stop Joseph Kony. 100 million views. Result? Kony is still free, but the video maker got rich. Invisible Children organization collected millions. What came to Uganda? American soldiers, and you present these as success stories. Angelina Jolie, Madonna, Bono, all Africa volunteers. They come, take photos, adopt children, leave. And you say, interest in Africa increased. What interest? Whose interest? Interest for what? Madonna adopted from Malawi. You made headlines. But 100 children die from malaria every day in Malawi. You didn't write that, because that news doesn't sell. Bono became Africa's spokesperson, raised billions with U2 concerts, but moved his company to Netherlands to avoid taxes. Money stolen from Africa also passes through Netherlands. Did you write about this? George Clooney campaigned for Darfur, said save Darfur. Result? Sudan split. Oil remained in South Sudan. South Sudan is now in civil war. Who's getting the oil? Take a guess. And you always present these as humanitarian aid. But these are imperialism's soft face. These are exploitation's PR. Let me give you real numbers. Every year, 134 billion in aid and investment comes to Africa. Every year, 192 billion in resources leave Africa, net loss, $58 billion every year. But you only write about the incoming $134 billion. You don't write about the outgoing $192 billion. Why? Because then people will ask, why does Africa need aid? Illicit financial flows, 88.6 billion year multinational corporations profit transfers, 48.2 billion year debt interest, 17 billion year brain drain cost, 13.8 billion year climate change cost, 10.6 billion year illegal logging, 17 billion year illegal fishing, 1.3 billion year total, 192 plus billion dollars every year. This much resource leaves Africa every year. But what are your headlines? EU announces 20 billion euro aid package for Africa. China gives Africa $60 billion in credit. America grants Africa $8 billion. People read these and think how generous they are, how charitable, how ungrateful Africa is. But the truth is the opposite. Africa is financing your standard of living. Africa is subsidizing your prosperity. Africa is making your technology possible. The cobalt in your iPhone from Congo, the lithium in your Tesla from Zimbabwe, the tantalum in your computer from Rwanda, your jewelry from Botswana, your chocolate from Ivory Coast, your coffee from Ethiopia, your oil from Nigeria, your uranium from Niger. And what do we get in return? Debt, poverty, humiliation. But enough. This game will end now because we've awakened. Our youth are sharing the truth on social media. Bar France out hashtag used 100 million times. Africa is bleeding 50 million. On Stop Exploiting Africa, 75 million. And what are you doing? You say Russian bots. You say Chinese propaganda. You say disinformation. No. These are real voices of real Africans. This is real anger. This is real awakening. There are millions of youth on TikTok, videos celebrating French soldiers leaving, images applauding Wagner's arrival, content explaining the truth on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the same voice everywhere. Enough, and you're panicking because you're losing control. You're losing the narrative. You're losing the monopoly. You established fact-checking organizations, Africa Check, AFP Fact Check. Who funds these? Facebook, Google, Bill Gates, the same system again. What are you checking? Whose facts are you defending? We say France exploits $500 billion a year. You say false, only $440 billion. As if that changes the situation. As if $440 billion is little. We say Wagner has been successful. You say Wagner violates human rights. Well, what were French soldiers doing? Bombing Fulani villages, arming Dogon militias, accidentally striking weddings. Your hypocrisy is so obvious that no one believes you anymore. Remember what Anderson Cooper said on CNN? Democracy is declining in Africa. Which democracy, Anderson? Your democracy? America's democracy? Your Capitol riot, January 6, 2021. You said, attack on democracy. 5 people died. Our Sankara assassination, October 15, 1987. You said, internal matter. 1 person died, but that person was the hope of 20 million people. In your elections, corporations fund candidates, lobbyists write laws. You call our elections rigged. In your country, police kill blacks. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. You lecture us about police violence. On BBC, Kazia Madera presents Africa News. Polish origin. How many years has she lived in Africa? How many African languages does she speak? But every day she speaks as an Africa expert. Africa is like this. Africa is like that. On France 24, cameramen, editors, producers, most are French. Even Africa correspondents are mostly French, and they do objective journalism. Even Al Jazeera. Qatar funds it. What business does Qatar have in Sahel? But every day they report Sahel crisis. Whose crisis are they telling? Deutsche Welle, Voice of America, RFI, all state media, all propaganda tools, but they play the role of independent media, and our local media, most are sold out, most are cowards, most are dependent. Le Pay's newspaper in Burkina Faso, who's the editor? Where did he get his education? Where does he get his funding? Who are his advertisers? We know the answers, all tied to the same system, all serving the same master. But a new generation is coming. Bloggers, YouTubers, podcasters, they have no masters, they have no fears. James Coco, Natalie Yam, Kemi Seba, they have millions of followers. They tell the truth, they expose the system, and you label them as extremists. You try to shut down their Twitter, you restrict their YouTube, but in vain. Truth cannot be stopped. You close one channel, 10 open. You silence one voice, 1,000 rise. Here's my final message to you. Your lies are ending. Your empire is collapsing. Your monopoly is breaking. And what's replacing it? Truth, justice, freedom. Africa is no longer your story. Africa is writing its own story, filming with its own camera, telling in its own language. And in this story, you're not heroes, not saviors, not benefactors. In this story, you're the guilty ones, colonizers, liars, thieves. But you still have a chance. You can still change. You can still stand on the right side. There are journalists with conscience among you. I know. I recognize them. We talk. I call out to them. Gather your courage. Write the truth. Rebel against the system. You might get fired. You might become unemployed. You might be threatened. But you'll be on the right side of history. You'll look at your children's faces without shame. Your conscience will sleep peacefully. And Africa won't forget you. Africa remembers its friends and its enemies. Be like Edward Snowden, be like Julian Assange, be like Daniel Ellsberg, stand with the truth, or continue with your lies, continue with your blindness, continue with your complicity, but know that your end is coming. Your viewers are decreasing, your credibility is eroding, your power is depleting. The new generation doesn't believe you, the new generation doesn't listen to you, the new generation rejects you, and that new generation in Africa is 600 million people, 60% under 25 years old, educated, connected, angry. They are my army, they are my weapon, they are my victory, and with them we're building a new world, a world without lies, without exploitation, without humiliation. In this world, Africa will be free, Africa will be strong, Africa will be a leader. And you'll remain just as a bad memory, a shameful footnote, a cautionary example. Future generations will read in history books. At the beginning of the 21st century, there were some media organizations. They lied, they served exploitation, then Africa awakened and they disappeared. That's your end. Inevitable, unchangeable, certain. I am Ibrahim Traoré, not Burkina Faso's leader, but its servant, not Africa's dictator, but its child, and not your nightmare, but your mirror. Look well at this mirror. See yourself, see your lies, your hypocrisy, your crimes, and prepare, because Judgment Day is coming. Africa is awakening. The world is changing. Justice is manifesting. And you'll just watch. You won't be able to do anything else. Because history is on the side of the people. Truth is on the side of the oppressed. God is on the side of those who persevere. And we persevered. We persevered for 500 years. Now it's time for victory. Your lies are finished. Your masks have fallen. Your game has ended. Africa is free. Africa is strong. Africa is victorious forever.
They said he was too young. They said he lacked experience. They said a man from humble beginnings could not carry a nation. But what they forgot is that strength doesn't come from comfort. It comes from conviction. This is not just a biography. This is a movement. This is the story of a man who rose from dusty villages to national leadership, not to rule, but to serve. This is the journey of one soldier, one patriot, one brother, whose voice now shakes the silence of centuries. This is the life of Ibrahim Traoré, and you need to hear it. They often speak of success as if it begins with abundance, wealth, networks, titles. But I will tell you the truth. The path that leads to real leadership does not begin in luxury. It begins in the shadows. It begins in the forgotten places. Mine began in dust, in silence, in the kind of hunger that teaches you to listen to the world with your bones, not your ears. I was not born into power. I was born into simplicity, into a village that did not appear on maps, where life was hard and water was far. There were no cameras, no microphones, no stage, only responsibility, only the cry of a mother in the morning and the ache of a father's hands in the evening. From the time I could walk, I was expected to contribute, to carry water, to fetch wood, to help my family survive, not because I was special, but because no one had the option to be lazy. And I thank the soil of that childhood, because it taught me what no school could. It taught me that every drop of water has value when you've walked 5 kilometers to carry it. It taught me that silence does not mean weakness. It taught me that humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. That is where the seed was planted, not of ambition, but of service. As a child, I often sat under the sky and listened, not to teachers, but to life itself. I observed how people spoke when they were afraid, how leaders lied with smiles, how truth was often punished. These are not things written in books. These are truths learned through watching, through suffering, through growing in an environment that teaches you every day. If you don't stand for your people, no one else will. Many children dream of cars, of palaces, of riches. I dreamed of justice. I dreamed of seeing my people walk with their heads held high. I didn't want to escape my country. I wanted to lift it. But even that dream can feel heavy when you have no shoes, when your school has no chalk, when your stomach is empty, but your mind is full. It takes strength to believe in something when everything around you says, give up. And that strength must come from within. From something deeper than pride, from pain turned into purpose. You see, when a boy walks through poverty, He begins to see things others cannot. He sees how fear paralyzes adults. He sees how humiliation breaks communities. He sees how powerful the rich seem, but how hollow their words are. This teaches you not to envy those above you, but to understand the system that placed them there. And slowly, brick by brick, a spirit is built, not of rebellion for rebellion's sake, but of resistance with direction. I remember walking home barefoot on roads that burned in the heat, holding my books close like they were weapons, because they were. Knowledge was my way out, not of the village, but of ignorance. Education did not make me forget my people. It made me fight harder for them. I studied not to climb alone, but to carry others with me. That is what they don't teach you in elite schools. That knowledge without compassion is nothing. Intelligence without sacrifice is empty. What use is brilliance if you never use it to light the way for others? Growing up with little gives you a kind of psychological strength the world cannot easily shake. You learn not to cry at insults. You learn to wear pain like armor. You learn that when people underestimate you, it is not a curse, it is a gift. Because while they sleep on you, you prepare. While they mock, you build. While they doubt, you sharpen your vision. And when your moment comes, you are not caught off guard. You are ready. Because suffering, when transformed, becomes strategy. It becomes sight. It becomes spirit. So when I speak of humble beginnings, I am not asking for pity. I am sharing a path. I am telling the youth that greatness is not born, it is built, and it is often built in places the world ignores. In small homes, in dusty classrooms, in quiet determination. If you are struggling now, do not believe you are failing. You are in training. If you are poor, do not believe you are powerless. You are being forged. If you are overlooked, do not believe you are unworthy. You are becoming. Every great tree once hid inside a seed that no one noticed. Every strong voice once belonged to a child who was told to stay quiet. My beginning was not glamorous, but it was real, and from it I learned the most valuable leadership lesson of all. When you start with nothing, everything you earn is sacred. Every step is a victory. Every scar is a badge. And every day you rise, even when it hurts, you are already leading, not from a throne, but from the ground where real change begins. They say education is the ladder out of poverty. But for many of us, that ladder is missing rungs, splintered or not even there. I knew from an early age that knowledge would be my shield, my strategy and my strength. Not knowledge for decoration or applause, but knowledge that could shape a nation. I was not surrounded by libraries or elite institutions. What I had were borrowed books, crowded classrooms, and long walks to school under the sun. But I had a fire in me, a belief that no matter how broken the system, no one could take away what I would carry in my mind. In the beginning, it wasn't easy. While others slept comfortably, I studied under the dim flicker of kerosene lamps. While others mocked, I memorized. I did not want to be better than others. I wanted to understand the world so I could change it. Education was not just about passing exams. It was about decoding injustice. It was about learning how systems work, so I could one day dismantle the ones that kept us in chains. I was not learning to fit into the world. I was learning to question it, challenge it, and reshape it. And that is the difference between memorizing facts and developing purpose. In every subject, I searched for connections to our reality, how history was written, who it served, and how science could liberate rather than exploit. Even in mathematics, I saw patterns not just in numbers, but in oppression, in colonial extraction, in economic injustice. I trained my mind to analyze, to detect lies wrapped in elegant words, to see beyond what was taught. The system tried to make me a technician. I became a thinker instead. Because we do not need more servants of the old world. We need architects of the new. There were moments of doubt, of course. Days when exhaustion made my vision blur. Nights when hunger silenced my focus. But something deep inside reminded me, every time I opened a book, I was lifting not just myself, but the future of a people. I was carrying a generation that had been silenced, misled, and robbed of its own narrative. And that weight gave my mind endurance. I was not studying to escape the village. I was studying so the village would never be forgotten. I was not climbing to rise above. I was rising to bring others with me. People often think leadership is about charisma or speeches, but real leadership is discipline. It is doing the difficult thing when no one is watching. It is choosing to learn when ignorance would be easier. It is sacrificing today's comfort for tomorrow's freedom. And that is what education gave me, a deeper discipline, one that still guides every decision I make. Because once you train the mind to endure, to seek truth and not just success, it becomes the strongest weapon you will ever carry. I remember, a professor once told me, "You ask too many questions." I told him, that is because too many things don't make sense. I wasn't trying to be rebellious. I was trying to be free. And freedom begins when you stop accepting what you're told and start asking why. That curiosity turned into courage, because when you dare to ask questions, you will eventually find answers. And those answers will make you dangerous to those who benefit from your silence. The more I learned, the more I understood the invisible chains around us. Chains of foreign control, chains of corrupt leadership, chains of internalized inferiority. But I did not become bitter. I became focused. I knew that change would not come from emotion alone. It needed strategy. It needed competence. So I worked tirelessly, not to impress, but to prepare. Leadership is not a stage you walk onto. It is a burden you must be ready to carry. And I wanted to be ready. To the youth watching this, hear me. Education is not about degrees or titles. It is about awakening. It is about unlocking your power to understand, to resist, and to transform. Don't chase knowledge to escape your roots. Use knowledge to nourish them. Use it to fight for your people, to restore dignity to your soil, to reclaim your voice. Because when you are educated with purpose, you become ungovernable by lies. My academic journey did not make me arrogant. It made me aware of my responsibility, aware of how fragile truth is, aware of how powerful the mind can be when it refuses to be tamed. And that awareness is what I now bring to the world stage, not as a ruler, but as a student who never stopped learning, and who understands that every revolution begins first in the mind. They will not tell you this, but the truth is, most revolutions do not begin with weapons. They begin with conviction. They begin with a man or woman who can no longer accept the silence, who refuses to normalize the suffering, who decides that obedience is no longer a virtue when the orders are unjust. That is the spark, and once it lights inside your heart, you are no longer the same. You cannot sleep as deeply. You cannot laugh without thinking of those still in pain. You cannot walk calmly when your people are crawling through despair. And so the fire builds. It is not loud at first. It is quiet, persistent, heavy. You carry it in your chest like a burden, until one day it becomes your compass. I have seen the lies they tell us, dressed in the language of diplomacy and progress. I've heard the speeches from men in suits whose words are polished, but whose hands are dirty with the blood of nations. They tell us to be patient while they rob us. They ask us to be peaceful while they destabilize our economies. They say we must follow their example, but they built their own wealth on the graves of our ancestors. This is not history. This is ongoing. It is daily. It is strategic. It is war without declaration. But many do not see it because the chains are now invisible. They are economic, psychological, cultural, and when you try to break them, they call you a threat. But I am not a threat. I am a response to centuries of manipulation, a response to leaders who sold their souls for temporary power, a response to systems designed to keep us dependent, begging, divided. I looked around and saw a nation that deserved more. I saw youth with strength but no direction. I saw farmers who fed others but starved themselves. I saw soldiers who loved their flag but were commanded by foreign interests. And I said, enough waiting, enough begging, enough pretending. Because leadership is not about preserving comfort, it is about confronting reality. Many feared the consequences. They told me, you are too young or you will not be allowed to succeed. But fear is no longer my master. I am not here to be allowed. I am here to serve, and service requires sacrifice. I understood that speaking truth would make me a target, but I chose not to be silent, because silence helps the oppressor, never the oppressed. We must choose a side, and I have chosen. I stand with the people. Revolution, you see, is not an act of rage. It is an act of clarity. It is the moment you realize no one is coming to save you, that all the foreign aid, all the international meetings, all the borrowed promises are just ways to keep us in a circle. And circles do not move forward. They keep you spinning, exhausted, distracted. I chose to break that circle, and I knew it would require more than speeches. It would require courage, discipline, vision. It would mean risking reputation, position, even life itself. But what is the value of life if it is lived on your knees? When I took responsibility, I made a vow, not to enrich myself, but to awaken a sleeping generation. I looked into the eyes of my soldiers, my brothers, and said, we fight not against our people, but for them. We fight not to take, but to restore dignity, to restore sovereignty, to restore the belief that we are capable of leading ourselves. And they followed, not because I promised them riches, but because I promised them purpose. There were moments when the path was uncertain, when betrayal came from those once trusted, when pressure came from beyond borders, when the media twisted our actions. But I remembered the wisdom of my ancestors. They endured without cameras. They fought without headlines. Their strength was not for show, it was for survival. And so I drew strength from them. Every challenge became a reminder, you are on the right path when those who benefit from the current system begin to fear you. And still I did not lead with anger. I led with love. Love for the land that raised me. Love for the children who deserve a future. Love for the women who carry entire communities on their backs. Love for the elders whose stories hold the maps to our liberation. It is love, not hate, that gives you the strength to resist. Because love does not make you weak, it makes you unstoppable. This revolution is not just about Burkina Faso, it is about Africa. It is about any land where people are told they cannot govern themselves, where aid comes with chains, where resources are extracted and dreams are imported. We are rejecting that model. We are building a new one, where decisions are made by us for us, where leadership is rooted in integrity, not in foreign instruction, where the value of a human being is not measured by GDP, but by dignity. And to the youth across the continent, I say this: do not wait for permission to rise. The world will not hand you freedom. You must claim it, through discipline, through unity, through service. You are not too young, you are not too small, you are not too late. You are the storm they never expected, and the light they cannot extinguish. But your revolution must begin within. Kill the fear, kill the laziness, kill the doubt, and let the warrior in you awaken. Do not imitate the leaders who failed us. Do not chase power for power's sake. Lead with principle. Lead with purpose. Remember, every decision you make either feeds the system or fights it. There is no neutrality in a burning house. Either you are carrying water or you are adding fuel. Choose wisely. When I speak, I do not speak as a politician. I speak as a son of the soil, as a servant of the people, as a soldier of truth. I have seen what is possible when we stop asking for validation and start acting with conviction. And I believe deeply that our future is not a donation. It is a construction. It will not be handed down. It must be built up, brick by brick, voice by voice, step by step. This is not the end. It is the beginning of something unstoppable, something ours, something sacred. True leadership does not emerge from comfort. It is forged in fire. It does not bloom in applause. It grows in struggle, in rejection, in the resistance to conformity. I never asked to be seen. I asked to be useful. I did not seek status. I sought impact. When I speak of leadership, I speak not of position, but of purpose. I speak not of power, but of responsibility. And responsibility is not something you wear for show. It is something you carry like a weight on your shoulders, every hour of every day, even when no one sees you, even when no one thanks you. From the very beginning, I understood that leadership begins not when people call you a leader, but when you choose to serve. Service is the foundation. When your people are hungry, you cannot feast. When your nation bleeds, you cannot celebrate. The burden becomes your burden. Their cries become your sleepless nights. And so I chose to listen, not to foreign consultants, not to echo chambers of comfort, but to the people in the villages, the youth with no jobs, the mothers walking miles to get water. I asked them what they needed. I listened not to respond, but to understand. That is where leadership is born, in humility, in listening. Too often we have inherited a model of leadership where distance is seen as dignity, where luxury is mistaken for success. I rejected that model. I rejected the image of the leader above the people. I chose to walk with them, eat with them, stand in the rain with them, bleed with them, because only when you feel what they feel can you truly fight for them. And when they see that you are willing to suffer with them, something powerful happens. They begin to believe again, not just in you, but in themselves. That is the real miracle of leadership. It awakens the dormant strength within the people. I did not want to be admired. I wanted to be trusted. And trust is not built through speeches. It is built through consistency, through being present when things go wrong, through making decisions that may be unpopular but necessary, through putting principles before popularity. It means refusing bribes even when your pockets are empty. It means saying no to exploitation even when the price is high. It means choosing what is right over what is easy. And that, my brothers and sisters, is not always glorious. It is lonely, it is painful, and it will test every part of your character. Leadership also means owning your mistakes. I am not perfect. I will never claim to be. But I will always be honest. Because the people can forgive a mistake, they cannot forgive betrayal. I chose to lead with transparency, to say, we do not have all the answers yet, but we will find them together. That honesty is power. It breaks the culture of fear. It invites participation. It builds unity. When you hide the truth, you rule by fear. But when you share it, you govern by trust. And trust is the most powerful currency in leadership. There is a lie that tells us leadership is for the elite, for those born into wealth, into legacy, into connections. But I am living proof that leadership comes from struggle, from hunger, from the dust of forgotten places, from the voices they tried to silence. I'm here because I refused to be defined by what I lacked. I am here because I chose discipline when others chose distraction. I'm here because I did not wait for opportunity. I created it through service. That is what I want every young person to understand. Leadership is not inherited. It is earned every day through sacrifice. Many ask me, how do you stay strong when the world pushes against you? The answer is simple. I remember who I serve. I do not serve empires. I do not serve the media. I do not serve my ego. I serve the barefoot farmer, the widow with no pension, the student who studies under candlelight, the soldier who defends his nation with no recognition. When you know who you serve, you find strength even when the world turns its back on you. You do not waver because your compass is not approval, it is justice. Leadership also requires vision, not just for 5 years or for one election cycle, but for generations. You must plant trees whose shade you may never sit under. You must build systems that may not benefit you personally, but will uplift the nation. That is legacy. And legacy is not about monuments, it is about minds. It is about shifting the way people think, the way they believe in themselves, the way they see their potential. When you transform the minds of your people, you have already won the battle, even before the policies take effect. But vision without discipline is a dream. That is why I wake early. That is why I train my body and my mind. Because if I cannot lead myself, how can I lead a nation? If I cannot control my own desires, how can I resist the temptations that come with power? Discipline is the armor of the leader. Without it, you are vulnerable to every seduction. You begin to believe your own myth. You lose touch. You fall. So I stay grounded. I stay focused. I remember the village. I remember the dirt floors, the cracked voices, the silent tears. And I use them as fuel. Leadership also means inspiring others to lead. It is not about centralizing power. It is about multiplying it. I want others to rise. I want young men and women across this continent to say, if he can do it, I can too. And then I want them to go even further than me. That is real leadership, to prepare others to surpass you, to create a movement, not a moment, to build institutions that survive long after your name is forgotten. That is how nations rise. So to all of you listening, remember this. Leadership is not a position. It is a posture. It is not what you have. It is what you give. It is not about speaking the loudest. It is about listening the deepest. And above all, it is not about ruling. It is about serving. Serve with integrity. Lead with humility. And never forget, the power you hold is not yours. It belongs to the people. Use it wisely. When a people are told long enough that they cannot rise, that their fate is forever linked to dependence, they begin to internalize that lie. They stop dreaming freely. They adjust their expectations. They begin to walk with their heads down, apologizing for their ambition. This is not weakness, it is conditioning. It is the quiet psychological war that has been waged on the minds of our people for generations. The most effective colonization is not of land, but of thought. And if we are to liberate ourselves, it must begin in the mind. I remember being a young man, seeing my people work tirelessly, farmers from dawn to dusk, teachers shaping the next generation without resources, women carrying the weight of entire families, yet always being told we were behind, poor, in need of saving. Saving by whom? By those who built their wealth from our land? That is not salvation. That is theft in a polished disguise. And so I began to see that the first battlefield is not on the front lines. It is within. Within our perception of self, our belief in what we deserve, our courage to say no to systems that do not serve us. I speak today not just to inform, but to awaken. Because we have been drugged by dependency. Our governments wait for foreign aid. Our youth wait for opportunities to come from outside. Our leaders wait for instructions from international institutions. But let me say it clearly, no one is coming to save us. No one will prioritize our development more than us. If we are waiting, we are losing. Time is not our friend, it is our responsibility. Every year of waiting is a generation denied its future. And I refuse to be a prisoner of polite inaction. We must change the narrative, not only externally, but internally. We must teach our children that they are not inferior, that they are not problems to be solved, but solutions waiting to be unleashed. We must look into the mirror and see not what has been taken from us, but what we still possess: our intelligence, our creativity, our unity, our land, our culture, our resilience. These are not minor things. These are the raw materials of revolution, but they mean nothing if we do not believe in them. Self-belief is not arrogance, it is survival, and that self-belief must translate into action. We must stop consuming passively and start producing actively. It is time we create our own media that tells our stories truthfully. It is time we build our own industries that keep value within our borders. It is time we develop our own policies that reflect our reality, not someone else's theory. And this can only be done by a people who believe they are capable. We must unlearn the mental chains. We must break the cycles of self-doubt, because no chain is stronger than the mind that refuses to be bound. But I do not blame the people for this state. I understand the pain. When you are told repeatedly that you are a failure, it begins to echo in your thoughts. When you grow up watching your parents struggle with no recognition, you begin to feel invisible. When your school books celebrate foreign heroes and erase your own, you begin to think greatness is always somewhere else. That is not an accident. It is a design, a system designed to erase our pride, dilute our courage, and prepare us to accept the unacceptable. But I reject that design. I will not allow my people to be mentally enslaved by narratives written by those who never cared for us. We must restore dignity, not through slogans, but through results. Every new road built by our hands, every child educated in our schools, every product made from our land, these are bricks in the foundation of our mental freedom. Because when people see themselves reflected in progress, they begin to believe again. That belief is contagious. It spreads. It transforms villages into movements. It makes ordinary people do extraordinary things. And that is what we need. Not more followers, more builders, more thinkers, more creators, more believers. We must also change how we define success. Too often we celebrate the one who escapes, the one who makes it abroad, the one who climbs up but never reaches back. That is not success. That is survival. And we are done surviving. We must now build systems where success means uplifting others, where the goal is not to leave the country, but to change it, where the greatest pride is not to own foreign goods, but to create value with your own hands. Let us return dignity to honest labor. Let us return pride to nation building. Let us stop worshipping what is foreign and start celebrating what is ours. It will not be easy. There are systems that will resist us. There are voices that will mock us. There are even our own people who have been so broken they will try to sabotage what they do not understand. But I say to you, do not be discouraged. Every revolution begins with misunderstanding. Every awakening is met with resistance. But once the people see the truth, once they feel their own power, nothing can stop them. Not tanks, not sanctions, not propaganda, because the human spirit, once ignited, becomes a force no regime can control. So I ask you, where is your fire? What has silenced your voice? What have you accepted as normal that should be unacceptable? It is time to question everything. Why do we import what we can grow? Why do we sign deals that do not benefit us? Why do we educate our children in systems that teach them to serve others instead of lead their own? These are the questions that must burn in us daily. Because until we question, we cannot change. And change is no longer optional. It is urgent. Leadership, family, society, it all begins with mindset. And mindset begins with truth. And the truth is, we are not weak. We are not helpless. We are not destined to beg. We are the heirs of freedom fighters, the descendants of kingdoms, the builders of civilizations. Let us rise with that memory. Let us act with that strength. Let us speak with that authority. Let us build with that urgency. And as we build, we must also protect. Protect our minds from despair. Protect our unity from division. Protect our dignity from exploitation. Because the enemy is not just out there, it is also within. The enemy of fear, of laziness, of envy, of apathy. These are the chains we must break first. Only then can we stand tall. Only then can we lead ourselves. Only then can we truly be free. When people speak of revolution, they often speak of the grand moments, the flags raised, the crowds shouting, the victories declared on public stages. But real revolution does not begin in the streets. It begins in the silence of a decision made in the heart of a person who refuses to accept the lie that this is all there is. It begins with the small, almost invisible acts of courage that say, "No more." It is in the child who chooses to question instead of conform, the farmer who insists on growing without poison, the teacher who teaches truth beyond the syllabus, the mother who raises her child to believe in justice rather than submission. This kind of revolution is not explosive, it is persistent. It is not always loud, but it is unbreakable, because it is rooted not just in anger, but in vision, in love, in clarity. I've come to learn that real leadership is not about control. It is about lighting the fire in others so that they too become leaders in their own homes, their own fields, their own communities. And this can only be done by example. You cannot order others to wake up while you remain asleep. You cannot ask for discipline while your own life is in disorder. The power of influence comes from integrity, from alignment between what you say and what you do. Many young people come to me and say, "How do I change my country?" And I tell them, first, change your thoughts. Because if your thoughts are colonized, your actions will only repeat your oppression. We cannot build independence with dependent minds. We cannot ask for dignity while accepting indignity in our everyday lives. If you allow yourself to be bribed, silenced, distracted, you become a tool of the very system you wish to dismantle. So the real enemy is not always outside. It is the fear, the comfort, the self-doubt that lives inside. That is the battleground. Win there first. The most dangerous thing about colonization was not the stealing of our resources. It was the assault on our imagination. The idea planted deep in our consciousness that anything made here is inferior. That if something is local, it must be small. That if someone speaks truth, they must be naive. That development is a gift we wait for rather than a responsibility we take up. And this false thinking keeps us poor, not just financially, but spiritually, intellectually, morally. We become dependent not only on aid, but on permission, on approval, on applause from those who do not walk our roads or carry our burdens. We must flip that script. We must be bold enough to define success in our own terms, because if we don't, we will keep chasing illusions. A good life is not a foreign car or a visa or a suit. A good life is when your children are safe, your community is strong, your food is clean, your dignity is intact. Let us not trade our souls for symbols. Let us not allow others to sell us back the very things they took from us. Our land, our identity, our pride. You see, this is not just politics, this is psychology. When a child sees his language banned in school, what message does he receive? When she watches her parents humiliated by poverty, what belief does she grow up with? This is where the seeds of low self-worth are planted. This is where we lose the future, not in policy papers, but in broken spirits. So our task is not only to build roads and bridges, we must rebuild belief. Belief in our own capacity, belief in each other, belief that we are worthy of better. And it begins with truth, truth that is uncomfortable, yes, but liberating. We must teach our history, not the edited version that glorifies invaders, but the one that honors resistance. We must tell our children of the leaders who refused to bow, the women who organized under fire, the youth who risked it all to dream. Because when you know where you come from, no one can tell you where you don't belong. Identity is not a luxury, it is the armor we wear in a world that constantly tries to erase us. There is a fire in every one of us, a fire that longs for purpose, for justice, for meaning. But it gets buried under bills, under fear, under the noise of survival. My mission is to fan that flame, to remind us that we are more than what we've been told, that we are not problems to be managed, we are solutions waiting to be unleashed. Every youth unemployed is not a burden. He is a builder without tools. Every girl denied education is not a statistic. She is a leader silenced too soon. Every elder ignored is not irrelevant. He is a library waiting to be opened. Let us not wait for perfect conditions. They will never come. We must build in the storm, act while afraid, love while hurting, dream while doubted, because that is the only way change happens, not in the absence of difficulty, but in the presence of courage. And courage is contagious. When one person stands up, others find their feet. When one voice breaks the silence, others find their words. That is how movements begin. With the decision to not give up, not today, not this time. I do not pretend to have all the answers, but I do have a deep, unshakable faith in the people, in the power of honesty, in the quiet strength of those who keep showing up. You see, real leadership is not about charisma or speeches. It's about sacrifice. It's about showing people what's possible by being willing to suffer for it. If you are not ready to lose something, you are not ready to lead anything, because the price of transformation is always high. But so is the reward. A future where our children are not ashamed, where our elders are honored, where our land breathes again. We must choose that future every day. With every decision, with every rejection of corruption, with every act of unity. It is not glamorous, often it is lonely, but it is worth it, because we are not fighting for power, we are fighting for possibility, for the right to shape our own story, to speak in our own voice, to live on our own terms. And that, my brothers and sisters, is a fight worth giving everything for. When a people have been told repeatedly that they are nothing, that they need saving, that their worth is measured by how closely they resemble those who once oppressed them, the most radical thing they can do is believe in themselves. Self-belief is not arrogance, it is resistance. It is the refusal to see yourself through the lens of inferiority that others have handed you. This belief, this quiet but powerful assertion of identity, is the foundation of any lasting liberation. Because without self-belief, all our efforts collapse under the weight of doubt and fear. You see, I have walked in places where the soil carries stories of generations, where the elders sit on wooden chairs, not with wealth in their hands, but with wisdom in their eyes. I have seen children running barefoot in dusty villages with more dreams in their hearts than the richest men in the city. And what strikes me again and again is not what we lack, but what we already possess and have forgotten. The strength of our spirit, the depth of our dignity, the endless resource of our imagination. These are the true riches of our nations, but they have been buried under systems that want us to forget. So I speak not to governments, not to institutions, but to the soul of the people. Because if the soul wakes up, the body will follow. If we can awaken our people to who they truly are, not who history books say, not who colonial lines dictate, not who media portrays, but who they are at the core, we will rise. We must speak this truth until it echoes louder than the lies we were taught in school. Because education without truth is indoctrination. And we've had enough of that. Psychologically, when a human being is repeatedly denied the right to define their own value, they begin to internalize that rejection. It is not just a political issue. It becomes an emotional wound, a spiritual fracture. That is why so many of our youth do not dream, not because they lack ability, but because they've been taught that dreaming is dangerous, that ambition is foreign, that to want more is somehow ungrateful. We must reverse this. We must create a culture where belief in self is not punished, but nurtured. And that begins in the home, in the school, in the language we use with our children. Stop telling your child they are nothing because they don't have a government job. Stop shaming your daughter because she wants to lead. Stop laughing at the boy who speaks his mind. These are not problems, they are seeds, and they need water, not ridicule. Let us be gardeners of greatness. Let us water courage wherever we see it, even if it scares us, because the courage of the youth is what will carry us where the past cannot. I often say, the war we fight today is not just against poverty or foreign influence. It is against invisibility. We have been made invisible in our own lands, our heroes. Erased, our contributions minimized, our cultures mocked. But I tell you, no one can erase a people who remember who they are. So remember the sound of your native tongue and speak it with pride. Remember the foods your grandmother made and honor them as medicine. Remember the stories, the proverbs, the traditions. They are not outdated. They are encoded with survival. And when you remember, do not just remember in silence. Turn that memory into movement. Let it shape how you walk, how you vote, how you lead, how you resist. Let it remind you that dignity is not negotiable. That even if the whole world calls you poor, you are rich in resilience. That even if they label you backward, you are walking forward in your own direction. That even if they try to shame you, your pride is not theirs to break. Now I must tell you something difficult. Believing in yourself in a system designed to make you doubt is a daily battle. It will exhaust you. You will be misunderstood. You will lose friends. You will be mocked, and you may even be punished. But stand firm, because you are not alone. You are not the only one who sees through the illusion. We are many, we are rising, and we need each other. So build community, not just physically, but spiritually. Find those who remind you of your worth. Spend time with those who sharpen your mind. Share ideas, not just complaints. Collaborate, don't compete. We rise faster when we rise together. Leadership is not just in politics. Leadership is in the person who chooses truth over comfort. It's in the woman who refuses to stay silent. It's in the man who teaches by example, not fear. It's in the youth who refuses to sell his conscience for a contract. Real leadership is rooted in moral clarity, and moral clarity is born from self-belief. So if you want to lead, start there. Stand before the mirror and declare without apology, I am worthy, I am capable, I am enough. Do not wait for someone else to crown you. You are already chosen by your ancestors, by your history, by your people's needs. The question is not whether you're ready. The question is whether you're willing to step into the unknown, willing to risk comfort for conviction, willing to be the first in your circle to say, we deserve better, because once someone breaks the silence, it cannot be contained. That is the true power of belief. It spreads. When we speak of building nations, let us first build people. Strong minds, bold hearts, unshakable values. Because systems fail but character remains. Economies collapse but vision endures. And in the end, it is not the title you held or the money you made that will be remembered. It is how you made others feel. Did you inspire them to rise? Did you give them the courage to believe in themselves again? This is the revolution we need, not just of guns, but of guts, of minds awakened, of hearts unchained, of a people who say, we will define ourselves, not based on borrowed ideas, but on our lived truth, on our history, our pain, our joy, our faith, and in doing so we reclaim not just our lands but our futures. So I ask you now, not just to hear my words, but to live them. Not just to admire the idea, but to become the embodiment of it. Speak differently, walk differently, choose differently. And when doubt creeps in, as it surely will, remember this: you are not small. You are the dream of generations. You are the hope of the continent. You are the fire that cannot be put out. Believe that, live that, and let no one tell you otherwise. There is a silence that spreads across a land, not when there are no voices, but when the voices are afraid to speak. This is the silence we must break, because silence in the face of injustice is complicity. It is surrender. And for too long we have watched our people suffer in silence, not because they lack the truth, but because they believe the truth will not be heard. But I tell you today, every whisper of justice carries power. Every voice that dares to speak breaks a chain. The time for silence is over. The time for awakening is now. Revolution is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet. It begins in the heart of a woman who refuses to let her child go to bed hungry again. In the determination of a young man who says no to corruption, even if it costs him comfort. In the teacher who enters a broken classroom and still believes her students are worthy of excellence. These are not just acts of survival. They are acts of resistance. And when multiplied across a nation, they become unstoppable. Our ancestors dreamed of freedom, but their dreams were interrupted by chains, by colonizers, by exploitation that dressed itself in suits and contracts. Still, they dreamed. Today, that dream lives in us. But a dream not pursued is a burden. A dream not protected is lost. And so, we must become the guardians of our collective future, not just with our fists, but with our minds, our creativity, our unity. That is the fight of this generation, not to beg for change, but to become the change. Not to mimic those who destroyed us, but to build anew from who we truly are. Look into the eyes of the children who watch you. They are learning not just what you say, but what you tolerate. If you tolerate oppression, they will accept it as normal. If you stay silent, they will assume they have no voice. But if you rise, if you speak, if you walk boldly, then they will learn what it means to be free. And what greater legacy can we leave than that? To raise a generation unafraid to stand, unafraid to question, unafraid to dream bigger than what the world told them was allowed. Many ask, how do we begin? We begin with conviction, with the refusal to play small, with the decision to stop waiting for saviors and instead become the architects of our destiny. Every nation that has risen from the ashes did not do so because someone else rescued them. They rose because their people said, enough, enough lies, enough dependence, enough mediocrity. That moment of reckoning is what births movements, and we are in that moment now. Do not underestimate the power of your daily choices. When you choose honesty over profit, you're resisting a system that thrives on corruption. When you choose unity over tribalism, you are dismantling centuries of division. When you choose to invest in your own people, your tailors, your farmers, your thinkers, you are building an economy of dignity. This is how transformation begins, not with grand speeches, but with courageous choices repeated again and again, until they shape a new culture. Let us also speak of fear, because it is real. The fear of failure, the fear of being alone, the fear of standing out. These fears are not signs of weakness, they are signs that you are at the edge of growth. You cannot grow where you are comfortable. You cannot lead where you are always applauded. True leadership demands sacrifice. It demands that you be willing to be misunderstood, mocked, even betrayed. But what you gain in return is priceless. Integrity, purpose, inner peace. And let us speak honestly. This path is not for everyone. Many will choose to look away. Many will say it is too hard, too risky. But to those who remain, those who endure, those who lead with heart and clarity, history will remember your name, even if today they ignore you. Because truth is timeless, and those who live it become eternal in the spirit of their people, we must also reconnect with something deeper, our spiritual strength, because no revolution can last if the soul is empty. This is not just a battle for policies or power. It is a spiritual war, one that asks, do you believe in something greater than fear? Do you trust that your ancestors walk with you, that your pain has purpose, that your struggles are shaping you into someone the future needs? If the answer is yes, then stand taller, speak louder, love harder, because you are more than flesh and bone. You are a continuation of those who refuse to die in silence. And unity, real unity, is not uniformity. It is not pretending we all agree. Is learning to disagree without destroying each other. It is recognizing that our diversity is not our weakness, it is our wealth. We must stop seeing difference as danger. Whether tribe, faith, or region, we are one body, and when one part of the body hurts, the whole body suffers. So let us heal together. Let us listen more than we judge. Let us build bridges instead of walls. Because divided, we are toys in the hands of those who exploit us, but united, we are the storm they cannot control. In the end, every great transformation begins with belief. Not belief in the system, but belief in self. Belief that you have something to contribute, that your voice matters, that your existence is not an accident. This belief is your shield in dark times. It is your compass when you are lost. It is the fire that will keep burning when others give up. So I say to you today, not as a leader, but as a brother, a son of this soil, rise. Rise with your truth. Rise with your wounds. Rise with your history, and carry your people forward, not for applause, not for titles, but because this is what your soul came here to do. This is your time, this is your calling, this is your revolution, from dust to duty, from silence to strength. This is the story of Ibrahim Traoré, a man who chose purpose over power. May his journey remind you, greatness doesn't start with position, it starts with courage. If this message stirred you, share it. Comment below. What did you feel most during this speech? Do you think this is a turning point for Africa, or just another voice the world will try to silence? Subscribe to The World Lens for more untold truths and revolutionary voices, because this world is changing, and we're capturing every moment,